So we're learning Tanya, Igeres haTeshuva. Today we're going to finish Igeres haTeshuva in Mirz Hashem. We're on page Kuf Aleph in the middle of chapter 12. And the Alter Rebbe here discusses a very important issue.
The daily cycle almost finishing as well?
What?
Like we're converging with the daily cycle, right?
Yeah, we're very close. Not exactly, but very close. Yeah. Hashgacha pratis, everything's the divine providence. So here he talks about the issue, which is, on one hand, a bitter pill. But sometimes you have to take a bitter pill to become healthy. And the bitter pill is acceptance of yisurim, of suffering. And not only acceptance of it, but accepting it with simcha, which we've discussed and thought about many times. And here the Alter Rebbe gives us a way, a method to deal with it. If you remember, in the 26th chapter of the first section of Tanya, he talks about a similar issue, but there the method and the recipe that he uses there is very, not Kabbalistic, but very spiritual. And that is that suffering comes from the Yud-K, the first two letters of God's name, which are much higher, which is Alma Diskasya, the concealed worlds. That's why we don't see the good in it. And it's similar to Hashem taking out the sun from its sheath when Mashiach will come, which tzaddikim merit because of their acceptance of God under all circumstances. B'simcha. That whole discussion is in chapter 26 of section 1 in Tanya, Likutei Amorim. Here, in the 12th chapter of Igeres haTeshuva, he talks about a similar thing, but he doesn't use that explanation. Not at all. And I was thinking about it. Why is that possible? Possibly because here we follow the trajectory of tshuva. Remember, Igeres haTeshuva is about teshuva. Igeres haTeshuva is not about Beinani. Beinani is a higher notch, a very different category of individual and experience and everything else. Here we're talking about a tshuva for every Jew. So here we're talking about someone who sinned and transgressed in the world, not just in thought, speech, not just in action or in thought and speech, having urges and cravings and all those issues. Here we're talking about someone who did an Aveda, very simply, against God. So here you have to be very practical in your advice. You have to be down to earth. Here, using the method that the Alter Rebbe uses in chapter 26 of the first section, Likutei Amorim, it wouldn't be user friendly for the Baal Teshuva. And that's an important lesson for us in life. Depending on which circumstances you're in, that's the method and the recipe of tikkun that you should use and you should recommend. So if someone comes to you, or you come to yourself, or your spouse comes to you, or your children, and they're not, on a higher level, they're dealing with the average issues of life. In your advice that you share with them and in the the comfort that you use, make sure it's very practical. Make sure they can relate to it. Okay. Now, overdoing it where, like I made a clip the other day about the Olympics, because everyone is obsessed now with the Olympics, or everyone, many people. And I reminded myself of something that Rabbi Gershon Schusterman told me. He was, at the time, one of the Chabad Shluchim in Long Beach, California. And for one of his son's bar mitzvahs, he wrote a speech. And he said that the Olympics, the way they begin is, they take from Mount Olympia, they take a torch, and they march with the torch, and that's the beginning of the Olympics, right? The Olympic torch. So he made this a sermon for his son to share at the bar mitzvah. So too is a bar mitzvah boy begins his life holding the torch of Torah mitzvahs in Yiddishkeit. He sent it into the Rebbe, and the Rebbe crossed it out, or circled the word Olympics, and said, like, outrageous in Hebrew. I think mavil, question mark. And then he added like avodah zarah, very, very, very harsh words, which is the truth. Mount Olympia is associated with the Olympic, the Greek god Olympus, and all of that, and it's avodah zarah, mamash avodah zarah. So here you're teaching a bar mitzvah boy using a mashal from avodah zarah. The Rebbe was very, very careful about these things. For example, the Rebbe didn't want the shluchim in Monica, California, which is known as Santa Monica, to use the word Santa for sure, and even S Monica he didn't like. And I always had an issue because I lived in Marin near San Francisco. The same idea, right? So Monica, they came up with a creative way. They called it Simcha Monica. In San Francisco, what am I going to call it? Simcha Frisco? What, Moshe? What? What?
Can't hear you for some reason.
You can't hear me?
Now we can hear you.
Okay, it must have been a mistake.
Hear you.
Okay.
Oh, yeah?
Anyway, it's your thing. Yeah. Anyway, so the Rebbe was very particular in the words and the usage. For example, deadline. You're on a deadline. He didn't like the word deadline. I mean, deadline. Dead means dead. So I had, in my writing over my years, I had to reorient myself because I'm his chassid. I want to be his chassid. I want to follow this. Instead of deadline, timeline, whatever, to find other words to denote and to express the same ideas. Anyway, I'm going to get back to the text here. So the Alter Rebbe here is dealing with this issue. Oh, so I was going to say that on one hand, Igeres haTeshuva is about the Baal Teshuva, which we all should be, Baal Teshuvas, right? So on one hand, you'll say, so talk, as we say, T-O-T, bottom line. On the other hand, if you oversimplify it and you water it down where there's no sense of spirituality, then why join this club? There's many other clubs you can join without going into the names of those clubs within the Jewish experience, where they've watered down Judaism, they've watered down Torah, and unfortunately, they basically are coming to an end. Like I shared with you my experiences in Cincinnati, where that was the home of Reform Judaism, and the shop is closing. 600,000 books in one building, hundreds of millions of dollars, a lot's being put on. And now they're fighting in court what they should do with the manuscripts, okay? So it's just a matter of time. So it took from 1875, when they founded it there, till now, okay, it's 200 years almost, 175 years. But remember, sheker ein lo kiyum. Falseness, fallacy, doesn't have existence. The Rebbe says, the Frierdiker Rebbe and the Maimer Boseligani that he gave out for his yahrzeit, it says that the letter, right, sheker has some truth that keeps it there, so it's like you don't see the entire lie, but at the end it's a sheker, it's a lie. So there's a great facade and a big building, and they helped bring over people, including Orthodox people, and they were very liberal, and Rabbi Dalfin can still go as a Hasidic Jew and make a presentation in their in their facilities, and they love it, and they're helping me to find different things. It's all true. But at the end, when I wanted to put up a mezuzah, and I said I want to pay for it because the place didn't have a mezuzah. A building that's worth multi-million dollars, you go in there, you feel like you're in heaven. Royal, rich, beautiful, right? There isn't a mezuzah on the front door. So I say to the director, I would like to give you a gift, a mezuzah. So she says, I have to check. She's the associate director, very fine person, really a fine person, with the director. And the director's also a fine person. He was out of town. A day later, she comes back to me. She says, he doesn't want to do it. He doesn't want to accept your gift. I say, why not? He doesn't believe in superstitious amulets. 2024, a Jew who's involved in Judaism, in his Judaism, and is proud of his, and is a nice person, believes that a mezuzah is a superstitious amulet. Nope. Now you know why Mashiach is not here. It's part of it. So we have our work to do. If anyone thinks that you can sit in Yerushalayim, Bet Shemesh, Yerushalayim, and learn Tanya, and it's gewaldig, but there's millions of Yidden that never still don't know or don't care. So what I'm saying is that to water down the approach of tshuva to just a very gashmistic thing is also not the path that we should be following. In a sense, we need a combination of the first section of Tanya, chapter 26, which is very spiritual, very mystical, and Igeres haTeshuva, chapter 12, which is more practical. That's the point I was getting at. Let's now learn. We're now page Kuf Aleph. We're like 7 lines from the bottom after the period. El lefi shoylem hazeh chesed yibonem. Since Hashem created this world with kindness, uv'yisurin kalin b'elam hazeh, and by having light, you hear that, Moshe? Light suffering in this world, nitzel medinim koshem shalelam haba. I have to tell you the story, but briefly, and I heard this from Rabbi Mangel. He said that someone came, I think it was to the Alter Rebbe, and said, I can't take it anymore. I can't take it anymore. I need to divorce my wife. She's driving me nuts. We've tried 75 times, gone to rabbis and therapists, and I can't. So the Alter Rebbe told him, because he saw that he had no choice. The Alter Rebbe saw the neshama. The Alter Rebbe said, my dear friend, your soul is from the Zman of the Bayis Rishon, I think he said. Bayis Rishon, Bayis Sheni, first temple, second temple. And he said, at that time, what was the Avodah Zarah? Idolatry. Like we worship money, they worshipped idols. All these, the Olympics and all that stuff, idols. Every time you worship an idol, it's an Aveira. Every single time. So imagine you're doing 3 times a day, bowing to an idol, meditating on the mantra of an idol, even as people were caught up in the 70s, 60s, 70s, the mantras and transcendental meditation and all of that. It's idolatry. The Torah, we know what the Torah says about idolatry, right? So the Alter Rebbe said to him, every time your wife makes you crazy, it takes away one aveira of idolatry. It's not a made-up story. I mean, I wasn't there. I'm repeating to you what I heard from a serious person. But even if, the concept for sure is true. You listen to a story and you say, did this really happen? And certain times you need to know that it really happened when you're checking facts, But other times, even if it didn't happen, the message is so important. The message is true. You can't sit still. Your wife is nagging you, your husband's nagging you, whatever, the spouse is nagging you and driving you nuts, you got to get out. You got to leave. Says the Alter Rebbe, she's doing you a favor. Your neshama is a gilgul of someone who committed thousands and thousands and thousands of averas of idolatry. Each time she gives you a nudge and makes you nuts, it takes away another one, and another one, and another one. And why do I say this? Because the Alter Rebbe says here, he says if one experiences Yisurin Kalin, look at it, light, easy kind of suffering, but it's suffering at the end of the day. There's Rahman Litzlan Hoyelisia, harsh suffering and there's easier suffering. Each time you have that, look at the words here. Nitzel medina koshim shalolam haba. You're saved from harsh judgment in the world to come. That's what it says here. Kemoshel, and he brings a moshel, hiluch v'hatokas hatzel be'oretz tefach, when the movement and the of the shadow on earth, that it moves a tefach, a small amount. Lefi hiluch galgul hashemesh b'nekiya, when the sun orbits in heaven, alpayim milim v'chula, thousands of miles. Don't ask me the science of it. We'll leave it to whoever's a scientist here. But there is this concept that one shadow here is based on an orbit of millions of miles of the sun, something like that. So what's the point? One experience of a pain, of a Yesudin Kalim on Olam Haz, here on earth, makes an infinite positive, it takes away, it removes, and you avoid so much more ad infinitum punishment, the torture, suffering in the world to come. That's the emotional that the Alter Rebbe gives. The Yeser al-Kain, he says, even more so, le'en ketz, ad infinitum. Who benimshul, it's in the moral, bebchinas ishtalshul sa'ilameis. When you talk about the progression of the spiritual worlds, merum ha'mailos adelam hazeh agashmi. We talk about from the elevated levels in heaven, in godliness, in the Godhead. From there, the olamais come into olam hazeh agashmi. In other words, when we do a mitzvah, Yaini, we're doing a mitzvah here. We go to shul, we put on tefillin. We go to a nursing home, we visit a yid. We do a mitzvah. We help someone here. This mitzvah on earth here makes an infinite impact on the spiritual worlds. So it's like an explosion of energy that's created by one mitzvah in Olam Hazeh. The explosion is so much greater in Olam Haba that's caused by your mitzvah. And that, by the way, is an answer, chevra, to those that say, what's the purpose, Menashe, of putting on tefillin with a Jew one time? The guy's going to eat the bacon afterwards. He's going to go and mess around. V'chulu, v'chulu. What have I done? This is another answer. The infinite result that you have from one mitzvah, it's infinite. So here it's taka one mitzvah. In the physical world, it's based on time and space and everything, so it's limited to one time mitzvah, putting on tefillin. Right? Let's continue. U'kenayden, as is known, Mashakosa b'Zohar HaKodesh, it's written in the Holy Zohar, Me'inyan Aliyah So'ilamois. Continue, everyone, turn the page to page 202, please. Hol Yoinim, the Aliyah, the ascension of the supernal worlds, Bisarusa dilatata, through our arousal from below. Bahakrovas oif echot, ben yoina otoir, the Torah says, bring a pigeon, a bird, pigeon, different, right? Al gabi mizbeach, on the mizbeach, or the kaimitz mincha, take some of the flour, make kmitza, take a little bit with your pinky, the way you do kmitza, right? What are you doing, Moshe? You're bringing one, excuse the expression, one stinking bird, one little bird, a gurnisht. You take a little flour, Avram, a little flour. How much does a little flour cost? Nothing, bupkis. And then you take that and you say, this is carbon mincha. And it's used in the carbonis. Let's continue. V'cheinu b'chol ha-mitzvahs, maisiyas k'noidim Arizal. He quotes the Arizal, that every mitzvah that's action-oriented, compared to what's going on in the supernal worlds, it's nothing. It's a little change, if that much. Nevertheless, that mitzvah, that little flower, and that little bird shakes up the spiritual worlds, makes an explosion that is beyond our understanding and ability to comprehend, and it opens up channels of energy that are holy and positive and good for you. Let's go weiter. V'zeh shomar Azal al posik, and the Alter Rebbe brings a posik in the Torah to support his idea. V'skadashtem, and you shall be holy. V'heyisem kedoshim. It's like a double lashon. It's in the Torah. Pas kedoshim, and I believe you shall be holy. Says the Chazal, Odo mikadesh atzmai ma'at milmata, a yid, a man. Remember yesterday I told you, Adam stam, look here, chevra. Adam here doesn't mean a goy, it means a yid. Yesterday in the shir we discussed the difference between Adam and ha-Adam with a hey. So here the Chazal, this is a Chazal. Adam mikadesh atzmai ma'at milmata, a Jew who's called Adam, sanctifies himself a little bit here below on earth. Mekachin oisoi harbi milmaila. He becomes sanctified so much more, harbe, so much greater above. One little movement of ours here makes an explosion in heaven that's positive. So that's a Chazal. So the Alter Rebbe brings this Chazal to support his point. And as we learned earlier in the first section of Tanya, chapter 46, that's what the Le'el refers to. You know, we say, make a bracha, Asher Kiddishanu, we've sanctified, we've become holy, Kiddishanu, we have become sanctified, b'mitzvah. Now, here's the thing. You can become sanctified and holy by doing a mitzvah, but it's all limited. What the mitzvah is saying, this you have to go back to 46 to see the Alter Rebbe's elaborate explanation, but his idea is a very powerful one. That when we do a mitzvah, one mitzvah, any mitzvah, kiddishanu b'mitzvah, the kedusha that we get, the holiness, is his mitzvahs. In other words, it's his explosion that we get. We do a one little mitzvah. And to us, it either is easy, or even if it's not easy, it's not, whatever. It's like, we can handle it, right? B'mitzvah. I'm sorry. So what we're saying is that the kedusha, kiddishanu, God's, through the mitzvahs, he brings a certain kedusha, which in the language of the Alter Rebbe in chapter 46 is what we call Seviv Kolam, the encompassing light, the infinite light of God, that is given to us through his mitzvahs, because it's his mitzvahs. We're doing them, but what are we doing? We're doing his mitzvahs. And this is another answer to that argument. I want to be a good Jew. What do I have to do a mitzvah for? Let me just be a good human being. Humanism. The answer is, you're right, humanism is a great thing, but it doesn't create the kiddishanu b'mitzvah. Unless Hashem says this act is holy, we as limited beings cannot create the explosion. We can create doing good human social justice, what they call in the world today tikkun olam. But is the godly experience just tikkun olam, or is the godly experience God, elikus, right? Elikus, divinity. Doing a good deed is not divine. It's good and important and should be encouraged. But we need to, when Hashem gave us a mitzvah, and by the way, the goyim for their mitzvahs, the Sheva mitzvahs, the concept of mitzvahs creates the kiddishanu from God's perspective. So the Alter Rebbe says this over here in a parenthesis to support his idea that when we accept Yisurin Kalin, even if it's just, any type of suffering here, it's just a little. We should know that we open up tremendous gates in heaven vis-a-vis that experience. Must it be that experience? No. We hope and pray it'll all be good and besimcha. But even Yisurin Kalin creates an infinite bond. And I think this is important, especially people, who suffer, and people, people when they pass on, they go through many times a lot of suffering and all that, and it's very, very sad, and it's very, difficult to deal with. And you say to yourself, God, you want to take my parent, my friend, my this, my spouse, whatever, okay, time's up. But why make them suffer? This weighs on us. It's right. It's a very real question. This isn't. So when we learn chapter 26 in the first section, chapter 12 here, we can find some solace. It still needs a lot of avodah, but there is solace and support. And when this is why Chabad Chasidism requires meditation, contemplation. This is not coming. You're not going to have any solace just by reading the words here. Anyone can read the words here and even understand the words. You have to let it sink in. You have to daven with it. You have to cry with it. You have to laugh with it. You have to walk it. You have to talk it. Then hopefully some of it will resonate. You know what I'm saying? So it's a heavy pill. No question about it. Let's continue and finish. The kocha mamish u'beinyas char v'oinish. So too says the Alter Rebbe when it comes to reward and punishment, k'maymer azal, as the sages say, schar mitzvah mitzvah. What is the reward yoini for a mitzvah? It's the mitzvah itself. I believe that's chapter 37 in the first section of Tanya. What does the Alter Rebbe say over there? What is he reading here? What's the reward for how he applies it here, Hillel? What's the reward for that suffering that you have? The gilui, the infinite gilui. Because the suffering is, yes, it feels and looks physical, and it is physical, but that itself is the vessel for the infinite. You don't have to, in other words, if you accept your suffering, and especially you accept it b'simcha, that acceptance creates the infinity. That itself. Not you have to go put on tefillin and give tzedakah and help Eden in the shopping, give them a ride with the car. Those are all good mitzvahs and other mitzvahs. But the suffering itself, which, what's the mitzvah about suffering? Is there a mitzvah? No. But Chazal say, l'kabuli b'simcha, to accept it b'simcha. Let's continue. Now the Alter Rebbe, the last line here, puts together words from chapter 14 and 16 in Mishlei. And most people understand this to be kind of a nice close. You know how you're supposed to, when you give a speech, whether it's in writing or in talking, you want to end with something. Look at this. V'das l'novan, and knowledge to the maven, the understander. Nekel, it's easy. Umaskil, and he comprehends. Al davar yimtza toiv, for this thing, finding good. Again, this is a combination of two parts of. It's not the entire verse. It's a section of a verse in chapter 14 in Mishlei, Proverbs, and a section in chapter 16. And what it means is basically the way we learn B'Pashtus. The Alter Rebbe is saying, if you can accept your suffering and be b'simcha, you're experiencing God at the highest level, in the highest form, and it's good and all that. But the Rebbe once explained that it's not just a closure for chapter 12 in Igeres haTeshuva. It's a closure for the entire Igeres haTeshuva. And the Rebbe says, what happens when you commit a sin? You know what happens? You shake up and you shake out and you destroy the Eser Sfiros. Chabad, Chagas, and him are all, they're all messed up from this sin and that sin, and it causes chaos. Mystical, spiritual chaos. Says the Alter Rebbe at the end. Moshe Myers, listen to this because this is phenomenal. The Das is Das, the third of the Sfiros. Lenovin is Bina, it's the second of the Sfiros. Umaskil is Chochma, is the first. So right there we have Das, Bina, Chochma, which is the backword for Chabad, Chochma, Bina, Das. Al Dover, Malchus is known as dober, speech, okay, because it communicates to the other. Malchus is the 10th sphere, which communicates to the next world. Tov, Isser, Tov means good, is a reference, according to Kabbalah, to Yesod, the 9th sphere. Yesod, the foundation. What is the Yesod? It's the encapsulation of the 6 midos. Chesed, Gevura, Teferes, Netzach, Hod, and Yesod are all encapsulated in Tov. So the Alter Rebbe is saying here that when you do tshuva, you've gone through 12 chapters of Igeres haTeshuva, and especially in the last chapter, and this is like the hardest thing to do is what he speaks about in chapter 12. And you do that, you correct the chaos of the 10 spheros, which was caused by your sin. Isn't that beautiful? So, again, you see the Alter Rebbe's genius of using partially two sections of 2 psukim in Mishlei, which normally you ask any guy in any base medrash, in any Litvish yeshiva, in any sermon, any rabbi, and they'll tell you, the Balatanya, he's finishing his treatise on tshuva, so he finishes off with some nice psukim, like is standard when you give a speech or when you write something to conclude. What's it called? The afterwards. I mean, I write, right? I always have a page, the afterwards. What's my summary of my book? And the Rebbe says, that's also true, but it's much greater. Here is giving us the recipe. What happens when you do tshuva, i.e., Igeres haTeshuva, you are miftaken. You correct and fix. You bring tikkun to the 10 spheros that you caused them to be in a chaotic way, out of system, out of balance, because of your sin. So you do tshuva, and this is the end of Igeres haTeshuva, you bring it all together. Chavre, we have, 1 second, Moshe, we have now a 3-week break. We will resume the second day, Rosh Chodesh El, which is Aleph El. It's a Wednesday, 3 weeks, and 3.5 weeks. Yes, Moshe, what are you asking?
Yeah, Rabbi Dalfin, I missed one thing you said. You said that the acceptance of suffering, we were discussing that a few minutes ago. The acceptance of suffering brings the... I don't remember exactly how you said it.
Well, I use different words. Brings the explosion, brings the infinite, brings the ultimate goodness that one will experience because they're able and they demonstrate that they're accepting their suffering, and especially besimcha. So Hashem promises and says the reward for that is a tremendous reward, not only in the spiritual world, la'achem me'er ve'esrim, here, and we have to open our eyes and be cognizant, and we could see it, we can see it. I'm telling you, I've seen it. I have seen this, in various ways, but you have to pay attention. You have to not get, flustered from the negativity. That's the problem. The problem is we get so flustered. My parent is so sick. God, whatever. I don't want to, it's not. It's like, what's going on here? Look at the chaos. Look what happens in Simchas Torah in Eretz Yisrael. We get, rightfully so, right? The Alter Rebbe is not saying not to recognize the trouble, the problem, but he's saying that the suffering has a purpose, and when we could accept it, not A, and B, accepted b'simcha, we will be therapeutically healed, spiritually healed, and we'll grow. Chavre, seid gesund, enjoy your vacation, right? I'm sure you guys. I told my wife. I'm sure you're going to go on to Yulim and Yerushalayim, right? You're not going to stay home.
I don't know. There's a lot of going on over here.
Okay, listen. Hey, all of us, already, pretty much with the white beards, we're already older, and so we're not running around. But we have grandkids and our kids, whatever Well, listen, it's easy to talk sitting here, very easy to talk. I really, I really want Mashiach to come before Tisha B'Av, and we should have eradication of the, of the evil. It's just, look. I mean, they knocked off 3-4 of these mamzerim, and they're gonna. This guy is just a matter of time. The Sinwar, but the enemy's still there, and right now they're saying that Iran won't attack because they're pressured by Eretz Yisrael and America. Halavai, Omen Kain Yirotzen, and the prophets say mitzvah. We said it in the Haftorah, I think, a week or two ago. When we're reading the Haftorah. The Shabbos Chazoin is the third Haftorah. The Shiva the Nechemta, and the Gimel de Puruniyusa, the 3 of punishment, of suffering, of torture. In one of those Haftorahs, I think the first one, it says, someone take a, you can, mitzafan te posech hara, from the north is the opening for evil. That's what our prophets say. That's what it says. Not the south, and not the east, and not the west, mitzafan. So, we know who the enemy is. We know who the clip is. And we will win. We've always won. We're here, Baruch Hashem, and Yiddishkeit is flourishing. So, it's, but there are these temporary things. But at the same time, we have to pray that what I think Shai Novi says it, your greatest destroyers are yourselves. Yourselves in fighting. That's something, and that's worse. That's worse. What the enemy can't do, unfortunately, we can do by hurting each other and fighting with each other and destroying each other and ratting on each other and everything else. And Hashem should help that we should do tshuva, and people are entitled to different opinions, but don't stab them in the back, So the Eibishter will help. And listen, we follow the Rebbe's approach. The Rebbe was a smart man, and he saw a lot. He lived pretty much from 1902 to 1994, a whole century. He saw everything, all the wars and all the killings and the Holocaust and Stalin and Russian pogroms and the Japanese, the Japanese-Russian war, and then the Korean War in Vietnam, on and on and on. This man lived through it all. How is he besimcha? And Hashem didn't bless him and his wife with children. How is he besimcha? So some say, well, he had all these thousands of Chassidim. But a person's a person. The answer is because he lived with faith. When you live with emunah tahira, pure faith in the Eibishter, that's pure and unadulterated, and bitochen gomer. Josh Gordon, Rabbi Yeshua Gordon of Shalom, who teaches so many people, right? He would always say what the Rebbe said to him, working hard, working merits, working with zest and working hard and schwitzing in your work of reaching out and bitochen and trusting God, you will succeed. You'll succeed. That's it. Hard work. No such thing as, resting on my loins. Whatever you do, hard work and bitochen gomer. So that's the recipe. L'chaim, a good day to everybody. Only simchas. If you need anything, you know where to get me. I'm always available. What? Take care. Shalom. Enjoy your time. Take care. Bye-bye.
Amen. You too, Rav.
Thank you.